Hi everyone, I hope you are doing really well. Today I am filming the second part to my anxiety video. You may have already seen that. If you haven't, go back and watch it. I will link it below, and if you're watching this on my blog, I'll link it in the blog post as well. So the first video was my anxiety / mental health journey, kind of my experiences with my own anxiety throughout my life, and also what I've done to seek help. This part of the video is going to be a anxiety Q&A because I had so many questions emailed and messaged to me after putting that video online. So many people wanting some advice and to hear my opinions about things, so I really wanted to film a special mental health Q&A for you guys. So I'm going to keep everyone anonymous because not everybody is comfortable with being open about their mental health problems. So I have a list of the questions on my phone. I apologise if I'm looking down, I'm just reading them off there. So I'm just going to jump straight in. So the first question I have is, are there any drugs or medications suggested to you by your therapist, and how was this decision made? I have never taken any form of medication to help with my anxiety issues. It was never something that I was interested in. Personally, I don't feel comfortable with taking medication with regards to mental health. And I'm even a little bit funny about taking medication with physical problems as well. It's just like a completely personal thing for me. It's a personal choice, and I think if you are definitely interested in looking into that route, speak to your doctor, and if you have a therapist, speak to them as well, because they'll be able to advise you. It is a bit of a minefield, I know, and there are a lot of different options, so you need to speak to a professional about that. But personally, I have never wanted to, and I probably never will want to take medication. Okay, second question. What's your best advice for someone trying to help someone else when that other person is very good at avoiding you and withdraws? So I can only really take this from my own personal experience. Everybody is different. I have a friend who requires people to bang on her door to check that she's okay and kind of force their way in, whereas I'm from the viewpoint that if someone is really hurting and wants to talk to me, I will allow them to reach out, because I would never want to impose myself on that person unless they're in serious danger or it's quite clear that they need to talk to somebody. So basically, I'm going to refer back to how my fiance Simon has kind of dealt with me at my kind of lowest point of anxiety. And he made it very obvious to me that he would always be there, and he would just come and just see, like, do you want me to come and sit next to you? Or do you want to be left on your own? If I said, I just want you to give me a cuddle or whatever, that's all he would do. And then he would allow me that space and time to be able to open up to him. It's very difficult to talk to people about your mental health troubles. And it takes a long time to be able to open up. And we've been together for 4.5 years. And I'm quite open with him now, but I still, I can be quite shut off and quiet, and he just allows me to do that. And I think the really important thing is never to push somebody, and never to seem like you know more than them or behave in an evangelical way, because you're just going to push them away. Just be quiet and gentle, let them know that you're there for them when they need you, and also ask them what they want. So they might be like me and they just need space, or they might be a person that needs constant attention, so just ask them, basically. Okay, how do you deal with your anxiety alongside your creative practice? So you may not know that I, as well as writing a blog, I also work as a freelance print designer, so I design patterns for companies, and I also run my own homeware business, so I have quite a creative lifestyle in general. And I do find that when I'm really down, which hasn't happened in a long time, but 2 years ago when I was really suffering with panic attacks, I didn't really allow myself any time for me because I wasn't in the right frame of mind. But as soon as I started speaking to a therapist, I started to learn how important it was to do things for me. And I would actually avoid putting the phrase work onto anything creative because that can really create a block and create quite a lot of stress. So if you're suffering at the minute and you're wanting to do something creative, whether that be writing, reading, painting, drawing, writing music, whatever it is that you like to do, don't see it as work. Set aside 10 minutes just to do a little bit. And now, because I've kind of taken the pressure away from my work a little bit, it's something that I reach to whenever I am feeling stressed, so it's become like an automatic response. The other day I had about 20 emails that I needed to sort out, and I got really overwhelmed. I was like, oh, my inbox is just crazy. And I just stepped away from my computer and I did a little bit of painting. And it was only for like 5-10 minutes. And then I was like, cool, that's great. I've done a little bit of design work. I might not use it, I might later on, whatever. And then my mind was just so much clearer and less stressed from having that creative outlet. So creative practice can sometimes be really difficult when you're anxious or depressed, but sometimes it's worth just giving yourself those 5 minutes to just do something, try something. It doesn't have to be finished, it doesn't have to be perfect. Do you find your creativity is a peace of place for you where you can escape, or does the weight creep in and affect your practice? Depends how busy I am. I imagine that if I have a client brief that needs to be done that is creative, but I'm also really busy with other things, that design work would probably cause me some anxiety and stress. Just like any work, but usually my kind of creative side of my job and what I do is a complete area for me to feel relaxed in because I'm in control. And I think a huge part of my personality is I find a lot of comfort when I'm controlling the situation. And my design work, no one else is doing that and no one else can do that. So it is like a place for me to come and just be myself and do my own work. And it's especially kind of uplifting if a client has asked for some work to be done. So it really depends on the situation. I think if you're finding your work extremely stressful and hard to manage, you'll need to think about that and spend some time figuring out why. And maybe you need to change what you're doing, because our work needs to be enjoyable because we spend so much time doing it. How do you deal with someone who doesn't understand mental illness? I have had kind of quite personal kind of response to this in the past, and there are always going to be people out there who just don't understand it. I've had people tell me like, why can't you just be happy and just snap out of it? Why does everything stress you out and why are you so anxious all the time? Which can be extremely frustrating because your mind just isn't like a normal person's, and you just can't kind of deal with stuff in the same way. So the best thing to do is to treat that friend kind of separately from your anxious personality. They're not the person necessarily who will be able to help you. And if you really are close to that person and you want them to understand, just go and have like a quiet drink with them somewhere. Maybe like share a bottle of wine or something in a nice quiet corner of the pub, or invite them round for tea and just be in a kind of nice neutral environment and say, there's something I want to talk to you about. I'm going to try and explain how I feel when I have depression or anxiety or OCD or whatever it is that you're suffering with. And then say, it is fine if you don't understand. Don't worry, because we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves to try and justify and explain things all the time, but you really don't have to if you don't feel comfortable, especially if that person just doesn't have the kind of right capacity or personality to understand what you're going through. Lots of my friends don't really understand what it's like, but then you meet the people who completely get it and it's so amazing. And not everyone's the same, and your friends all offer different things to you, so remember that. Okay. What if someone doesn't actually believe you're really ill? So this question was part of a much longer email I got, and I found it a little bit upsetting to read. I really felt for this person because I find it very difficult to understand why someone wouldn't believe that mental illness is real. You might have to go down the route of saying, here are these papers that this doctor has written about, or this kind of specialist has written about mental illness, or I read this article recently about this. So you can find kind of interesting papers from like Harvard and Yale and other universities in America and in the UK who have, quite a lot of extensive knowledge about this subject, and it's set out in a very scientific way, which might help people understand. Also try to explain that it is a chemical imbalance in lots of cases, it is nothing personal, it is sometimes not a reflection on your life or upbringing. So if it's a parent that doesn't understand, they may feel hurt because they think that you're upset because of something they did. And sometimes that is the case, but sometimes it's just how you're chemically made up and you can't help feeling depressed or whatever it is. So maybe the first thing to do would be to sit down with them and say, I'm going to be completely honest with you and explain how you feel and say, this isn't your fault, it's something I'm going through at the minute, I'm going to be seeing a doctor, I understand if you don't agree or believe me, but it's something that I'm going to do and it will make me feel better if I do this. So something I touched upon on my last video is how important it was that you see a therapist if you're comfortable with doing so, because seeing my therapist completely changed how I felt and changed my personality for the better. So no matter how people react to that idea, if you're comfortable with doing it, you must go, because you've taken that step to help yourself. And it is really upsetting if people don't understand or don't believe you, but it is your own personal journey and your own path to walk on. And just because this one person doesn't believe you doesn't mean that no one will. And even just having one person to talk to about it will help enormously. I'd like to think that whoever this person is that doesn't believe that you're ill, once they see a change in you for the better, they'll start to understand how important it is that you continue to get help. And I understand how hard that must be. I don't really know what else to say other than sit them down, tell them how you're feeling, tell them how you're doing and what you're going to be doing, and also understand that they may just be really struggling with the idea for some personal reasons as well. So yeah, that's my advice with that. Has your anxiety ever stopped you forming relationships? What if someone doesn't want to be with me because of my anxiety? My answer to that question is no. Simply because if I meet a friend or someone I'm interested in sexually or whatever the case may be, and they don't want to know me because of my mental illness, I'm not going to be friends with them, and that's the end of that. I think people can be incredibly judgmental. If you're constantly fighting with someone because they don't want to get to know you because you're ill, fuck them, basically. If they're a nice person and they're right for you, they will understand. And I've never once worried about Simon not wanting to be with me because of my anxiety, even when I was at my worst and I was probably just an awful girlfriend. And he's always been there for me, and that's why I'm marrying him. Well, one of the reasons. That sounds awful, it sounds like I'm just using him. That's one of the reasons that I'm so excited to be marrying him, is because I know there was never like a doubt in his mind. It never was a thing. It was never an issue, basically. And if you're in a romantic relationship with somebody who makes it an issue and makes you feel uncomfortable, talk to them about it. If that doesn't help, bye. Basically, because if they're going to be a dick to you about this, then they're just a dick. Like, it's as simple as that really. It's really brutal, but yeah, I don't really have much time for mean people, especially if you're trying. So yeah, bye bye. I'm a bit of a bitch sometimes. I also want to say that don't let anyone make you feel that you're not worthy of love ever, because you are. And people who are struggling with an illness need more love and attention, and if that person isn't willing to give that to you, or is judging you, or is being mean, then they're not worth your time, and they're not worthy of you, and they're not worthy of your love either. Every relationship is about give and take, and it sounds like this person is just taking a lot from you and taking a lot of your self-esteem and self-worth. Yeah, say goodbye to that person, whoever they are. I have 2 more questions I think left. So someone said, do you ever feel really, really sleepy and actually sleep so your anxiety can be dormant? This hasn't happened to me for a while, but it did. I had kind of like a bout of this like sleepiness 2 weekends ago, and I was having huge mood swings. It was like a hormonal issue that I'm having at the moment, and I felt like I did when I was a teenager, or when I had like really intense anxiety when I was a little bit younger. And I just went into my bedroom and I was in such a bad mood. All I wanted to do was sleep, and I was getting myself all worked up, like I shouldn't feel this bad, and I should be in the other room like hanging out, and I was getting myself in such a tiz. And then I just realised maybe I should just have a sleep, because I'm absolutely knackered and I can't deal with like my emotions at the minute. So I had like half an hour, 45 minutes sleep, and I woke up and I watched a Studio Ghibli film with my mum and my boyfriend Simon, and had some dinner. She made coq au vin, and it was such a lovely evening. And I think if I hadn't just like followed that like urge to rest, I would have been in a mood all evening. But I think it's an issue when all you want to do is sleep and you don't leave your bed or your bedroom. I went through a bit of like a difficult period at university where I spent a lot of time in bed with the curtains closed. My housemates were like, you're kind of like a vampire, there's something going on. And that was when I realised I was actually probably mildly depressed at that point. So it can be a bit of a warning. I think if you're just tired and you want to have a nap and you're a bit fed up, then do it. But if it keeps happening and all you want to do is sleep just so you can avoid your feelings, that's when you actually need to seek help. And again, I would recommend going to speak to your doctor about getting some therapy or counselling or CBT therapy or something like that. Okay, so it's my last question. I feel like this video is a lot shorter than my last one. I think I filmed an hour's worth of footage for that, and I had to edit it down, and it was still like 40 minutes long. Well done. Let me know if you actually managed to watch that whole video. Okay, so this question is, how do you get out of a slump caused by anxiety and start being productive again? This is, I feel like this is a question that lots of people can relate to. If you're feeling anxious and you're not doing anything, give yourself that time to feel crappy and recognise that emotion or emotions, and try to figure out if there's anything that's making you feel that way in particular, or if it's just your brain's just not really behaving itself at the minute. So give yourself that peace and grace and time, and then try doing something for you. So it could be something really small. Nothing worse than laying in your bed or laying on the sofa and not doing anything and feeling like crap for days on end. So have a shower, brush your teeth, pop some clothes on, make yourself something to eat, have a cup of tea, sit down, maybe you watch something on TV or read a book, or put some music on that you like. Maybe you feel like having a little dance around after that. Do some small things for you that might help lift you out, and then go outside, definitely. So make sure you're fed and watered and clean, and maybe a little bit more entertained. and then go outside and have a walk for about, I would say, half an hour to 45 minutes, just to get your kind of blood pumping and see how you feel. And I think usually you'll come home and you'll feel a little bit more refreshed, and you might be up for doing like 5 to 10 minutes worth of work. So if you're quite overwhelmed with work, maybe just have one task you do that day, so you clear your inbox, or you do that little bit of admin you're meant to do, like pay some bills or something, but just do one thing that day. Because, and it's definitely happened to me before, you're like, I've got too much to do, I can't do it, I'm not doing anything today, fuck this. And then that evening you feel even worse. So it's better to say, well, I had a crap day, but at least I went out for a walk, at least I had a shower, and at least I answered that email. So just do the kind of basic amount that you can do to make yourself feel a little bit better, and then every day try and do a little bit more until you kind of come out of the slump. And if you're feeling, if it's not just a slump, if you're actually feeling depressed, then that's obviously a slightly different problem. And then, yeah, you might want to talk to somebody. So I actually remembered I have one more question, which is kind of connected to this, that says, how did you know you were ready to speak to a therapist? Which I think is quite a nice way to like end this video, and we might like tie everything together a little bit. So in my last video again, I go into more detail, but I've been having anxiety attacks and anxious feelings and that kind of those like bad feelings basically since I was a toddler. And then I started to panic quite a lot, and I became afraid to go outside. So this was at its worst, I'd say 2 years ago. It was like 2 summers ago. So I think it might have been like 2013, 2014. I can't really remember what it was, but I became afraid to go outside, and I became afraid to get on public transport, and those two things are quite big parts of everyday life. And I was afraid of them because I was having so many panic attacks that I was ashamed and stressed and worried, and the thought of leaving the flat was very difficult, and I had to do it for work every day. I work at home now, but I had to do it every day, and I would get to work and I'd throw up for the stress of it all. And became worse and worse and worse, and I had about 3 to 4 panic attacks a week, and they were really awful ones, and they were completely mind-blowingly awful. And I got to the point where I remember sitting on the sofa and I just had a really bad panic attack, and it was night time and I was sat in the dark, and I think Simon was in the bedroom and I just wanted to be on my own, and I felt like I was going insane on like a deeper level, and I was really worried about my mental state. And I kind of use that phrase like going insane, and it's a really difficult one, but I just felt mad, and I was really, really worried, and I had these kind of voices in my head telling me that I wasn't good enough, that I was insane, and that like I wasn't a real person anymore. So I kind of just lost my personality, and I lost who I was. I lost all my confidence, and those sort of feelings would go away when the panic attack was over, but just the tail end of the panic attack, it would last for like half an hour, and I just remember being like, what am I? Like, what is going on? This isn't me. Like, who am I? And I had this kind of like crisis every time I'd have a panic attack, which was really uncomfortable to deal with. And it kind of reminds me of how I feel like someone might feel when they're going through depression. Yeah, I just completely lost myself, and it's a really weird feeling because losing who you are, it is like madness, really. So I remember calling my doctor up to have an appointment, and I'm always quite afraid of going to the doctor. I kind of put it off for anything. And it took a few weeks to get an appointment, and I was there, and it was in the evening, and I had dinner plans with a friend that I hadn't seen in about 3 years, and her family that evening, and the doctor was running 45 minutes late, but no one told me. I remember going up to the receptionist at the desk and saying, do you know when my appointment's going to be, because I've been waiting here for 45 minutes. Like, oh sorry, I'm running about an hour late. And I just completely lost it. I had a panic attack there and then, because I was like, I can't deal with this. And I think that's just sometimes what it's like to go to the doctor in London. But I was really annoyed nobody told me, and I was really worried I was going to be late for dinner. So I had to rush out of the doctor's and run to the tube, and I remember on my way I had another panic attack and I had to call my mum, and I just knew, like, that is enough now. Like, I can't keep doing this to myself. And I said, if the NHS aren't able to help me, I remember I made a few phone calls and they said, you can get an initial doctor's appointment in 2 weeks, but then it's going to be about 6 to 8 week waiting time to see your initial appointment with your therapist. And I think that wasn't even to have like a proper therapy appointment, that's just to have a meeting with one. So I was like, God knows how long it's going to be until I actually get into the therapy process and have like regular appointments. So I just decided to pay for a therapist privately, and I got seen like the next week. So I think I only had to wait a few days. So yeah, I was at the point where I couldn't leave my house. Well, I didn't want to leave my house, and I couldn't go into public spaces, and I couldn't go into the supermarket, and I couldn't get on the tube, because I was just so upset and unwell. And that's when I knew that it was really bad, and it was probably starting to affect, well, probably actually wasn't really affecting relationships. I was worried it was affecting relationships, but I'm very lucky that Simon and my family and my friends kind of understood there was something going on, and I kind of was more open to them. Once I booked that initial therapist appointment, I was like, guys, this is what's happening, and they were like, that's really awful, we're really sorry. So yeah, that was it really. And I probably should have had therapy a lot earlier. My dad died when I was 15, and I probably needed therapy maybe even before that happened because of my anxiety, but definitely afterwards, and I just kind of refused to have it. So it's a personal choice, and you have to be ready. No one else can tell you when you're ready to have therapy. It is completely up to you. If you feel ready, then you should do it. Okay, that is all I'm covering for now. If you have any other questions, I can do another one of these. If I haven't covered the problem or question that you were hoping I was going to, I can film another video. I'd love to. I'd also like to film other videos as well. So if you have any other suggestions, I would like to film a video about productivity and my kind of work routine, because I work from home, and that might be interesting for you guys as well. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. I'll leave all my social media links below, and if you're watching this on my blog, I hope you enjoy reading it, and I will see you guys very soon. Have an amazing day. Bye!